Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm Boysen Hodgson. I'm the Communications and Marketing Director for the ManKind Project USA. I completed the New Warrior Training Adventure in April 2004 in New England. I began serving in volunteer roles in the ManKind Project in 2005 when I was 34 years old. And I've now been part of the MKP USA staff since 2011. My mission is to transform culture by designing change, building bridges, and co-creating space for connection. And I think I'm in the right place today, and I am so full of joy and gratitude to be where I am. My heart's thumping. I'm here today to talk about the relevant evolution of the work that we do together. And I'm very mindful of the word we. Carries a burden of responsibility. And I hope that I will respect and be responsible and meet the demands of that burden today. First, I'd like to express gratitude for the invitation to speak here today. I know with certainty that there are people out there in this room wiser than me. Men and women, people of all gender identities and expressions, from whom I have learned the best, everything that I will share here today. Thank you. The names of the Founders Circle of Honor winners come to mind. Some folks we've already heard from. Names of Ron Herring Award winners come to my mind. And others. Patricia Clayson, Jan Hutchins, Jeff Lawton, Sammy Bluebird, Elisa Starkweather, Stan Sherman, Paul Newell, Scott Freed, Will Flanders. Those are personal names to me. And so it is with the New Warrior Training Adventure and the ManKind Project. There are giants, there are wild men and wild women who lift me and who have lifted us onto their shoulders and carried us off to learn the lessons we need to learn. Some of those folks have moved on. Some of those folks have passed on. Thank you, John Levitt, for inviting the names into the room with us today. That was a powerful moment. We have lost icons. Robert Moore, Don Jones, Don Yelovich, Chubbs Thunderhawk, so many others. We've taken that moment. And I will also share that I will capture all those names that were put into the chat window, and we will publish them from today's meeting. So, and there are others, maybe not as often recognized in our conversations, who have played a crucial role in bringing us here today. Chartosi, Jude Blitz, Sarah Schley, Zoe Alawan, Sonica Tinker, many, many more. I know without a doubt that I would not be standing here without the support that I get from my wife, my partner, Kendra. There are men, women, non-binary, and transgender people who I continue to discover are foundational to what we do, who likely don't even know that they form the foundation of what we do. You out there know many people who are informing your work, informing the work of this we, who probably don't even know that they're playing a role. One quote that has been a marker for me in understanding this men's work comes from Bell Hooks, a feminist author. She says, "The first act of violence that patriarchy demands of males is not violence toward women. Instead, the patriarchy demands of all males that they engage in acts of psychic self-mutilation, that they kill off the emotional parts of themselves. If an individual is not successful in emotionally crippling himself, he can count on patriarchal men and women to enact rituals of power that will assault his self-esteem." That's Bell Hooks. That quote uses the word patriarchy. Some find that a hard word. And if that's true for you, what I often hear, I hear that as programming. Mark Green calls it man box culture. So it's that imposition of coding, programming, that we did not choose. I did not choose that. Forced on the soft animals of our human beings. I am here as a stand against the psychic self-mutilation that old program, what we have heard in the New Warrior Training Adventure as that old warrior paradigm, that's perpetuated by both men and women, systemic to us, not individual. Since I stepped onto the carpet in 2004, I have felt others standing with me. Loving, beautiful men and women with all kinds of masculine and feminine expressions. Loving ourselves, loving each other, loving so much that I became willing to break the programming that I had taken on. Loving so much that I can be present to the rituals of power that assault my self-esteem and be unmoved. Loving so much that I am sometimes conscious enough to interrupt the assaults against others, to break that man box culture. And I see you. I see many of you doing that. And I see us together, this we, evolving. So because of this work, I'm making the world safer for my daughters and my wife. Because of this work, I now can welcome and seek out strength and leadership from women, from LGBTQIA people, from people of color, from indigenous people, because my strength is not in supremacy or infallibility. but in my interdependency. And I think that's part of the evolution that has been relevant and that will continue to be as we move forward. In any conversation about our evolution, there's a story of our beginning. We've heard some of that story here today, and I'm not going to tell that whole story. We have videos for that, including a beautiful video from Rich Tosi that we recorded just a couple of months ago, talking about the early years. That'll be in the ManKind Project history page. And there's no guarantee that even if I did try to tell that story, that I would get it right. Hal Kleckman, who wrote a thesis on the history of the ManKind Project, shared with me that even stories from the men who were there differ. I'm looking at you, David Carr. That's not what happened, is as common a response as, I remember that. Kauth and Tosi sometimes remember it differently. And any of the dozens of men who were there in the beginnings of the chapters, all of them have their own perspective. Perspective. This is a word that I will come back to. And I wonder what it would be like to ask their partners or their wives or husbands what they remembered. 35 years of a game of telephone, and such is evolution. As far as I can tell, one thing can't be argued, and you've heard it here today. I've been hearing it through every person's speech. The organization has evolved over time. From the first Wild Man weekend in January 1985 to over 125 New Warrior Training Adventures last year. From Hamawoods to trainings held in over 14 countries. From the Milwaukee Journal to Netflix and the New York Times. From a single training to dozens of trainings, over 1,000 men's groups, hundreds of leaders, hundreds of organizations, programs, coaches, institutions that have evolved from this humble beginning around a kitchen table. Or as Tosi would say, from his refusal of Bill Kauth for months and months. And I've heard this in the chat today, to more men in more circles, in more places. John Levitt spoke beautifully to this growing impact in his acknowledgments of all the countries and communities popping up to say, we're ready, we want this, we are hungry for this change. It is mind-bending to me to imagine how many lives have been touched by the hearts of new warriors. Men like you. Today, however, feels different to me, and I think to a lot of us. The COVID-19 crisis, our need for physical distancing, the economic and systemic impacts of this global pandemic have already been brought into the room. And simply the fact that I'm standing here in my office rather than being together physically with you, the changes that we're facing as a society are frightening. Evolution from this microscopic world of coronavirus to the global scale of climate chaos is in large part driven by distress, by pain in the environment. Hardship drives the creative urge. Right now is a time of evolution for all of us. It's the most profound wake-up call of my lifetime. And I believe that this wake-up call is a call to adventure, a call to a new hero's journey. I have heard a number of people in the past weeks say, this is what the work has been for. These are the times when new warriors must stand up. And I agree. This is a time to test what we ask of one another, right? Are you that man? Are you that woman? Are you that human? Are you a new warrior who has faced the past and healed? Healed so that you can face the world with love and on mission. So I believe this is critical for us as individuals. And I'm bringing another perspective as well. So there's that word again, perspective. More than the individual, more than the I, our initiation into mature manhood and brotherhood, I believe we are in an initiation for our collective body, an initiation for the whole we, an initiation for our individual regions and for our global brotherhood to face. We didn't choose it. It is more brutal than the NWTA. We have been pulled from our slumber in the night. We've been yanked from our mats by the grandfathers and the elders, and the grandmothers are watching. And the fear in their eyes is real. The ManKind Project, this we, this collective, is right now facing a challenger sensei at the door. And the sensei at the door is a beacon of reality, of undeniable presence. In the sensei's eyes is a reflection of who we really are. And undoubtedly, this initiation will test us physically, emotionally, spiritually. Are we ready to do what it takes to get what we came for? Are we ready to face limiting beliefs that we have taken on as a brotherhood? Are we ready to question and challenge stories we have held sacred, recognizing that what once worked may not work now? There may be new ways to move and be and work with one another. Charles Eisenstein published a piece in the last week called The Coronation. This is a quote from The Coronation. Because of the 100 paths that radiate out in front of us, some lead in the same direction we've already been headed. Some lead to hell on earth. And some lead to a world more healed and more beautiful than we ever dared believe to be possible. Thank you, Charles. What is it that we are here to get? And what is our gift? The whispers of this evolutionary journey have been with us for a long time. From the New Warrior Network to the ManKind Project, to Junpo Kelly and Mondo Zen, to spiral dynamics and integral theory, to the growth of prison work and veterans work and Boys to Men, to Bill Kauth giving copies of the crash course and the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible to the ManKind Project Council a decade ago. Visionary at large indeed. From the first GBTQ gateway to the barrier-free NWTA, to the Warriors of Color United and the Brotherhood, to the complex dance of sovereignty and connection across our global regions, and to the people from around the globe, both within and without of the ManKind Project, challenging us all, challenging our collective we to face our shadows of institutional racism, of homophobia, classism, colonialism, sexism, ableism, to integrate our pasts more fully, to accept responsibility, to include, and to transcend. We must, in this time of relevant evolution, not only become aware of the paradox, but learn to dance with it and in it. It is a time of paradox. And I've heard before that being on the cutting edge of growth and change is scary. May it be that we continue to nurture the grace that allows us to see the truth in divergent perspectives. We need and we grow from those differences. This collective we will have to step further into discomfort if we truly want to have the impact that we have declared we want to have. Some of the questions of the New Warrior training adventure in our I groups become potent. What is at risk? What do we serve? What new awareness are we willing to integrate? How much not knowing are we willing to love and accept with the New Warrior's presence and open heart? What is the level of vulnerability and visibility that the we, this collective, are willing to embrace? It will come with consequences, and the New Warrior takes responsibility for the impacts of his words and actions. For me, imagining all of the ManKind projects standing on the threshold of our initiation, I see incredible strengths. I see opportunities. We together have been preparing and feeling into this moment for some time. We have allies in the archetypal energies we explore and expand. We have allies in the processes and skills we have developed and learned from others. We have allies in the tremendous amount of expertise I see showing up every day to say, how can I help? And we have allies in the vast riches held in our growing diversity, which we can only begin to imagine. This will continue to challenge us and elevate us. We have new warrior souls. What I've heard over and over as this crisis has progressed is the invitation to dive deep, to go into the well of grief in search of the small gold coins. This is work we know how to do, and this is work we can support each other to continue. Our values have been brought into the room already, and I'll repeat them again. Accountability, authenticity, compassion, generosity, integrity, leadership, multicultural awareness, and respect. We have these as allies and as practices, and we each have a mission of service. In the hero's journey, we have crossed the threshold. We are separated from the regular world now. If we have been on a road of trials before, we are now facing our ordeal. The drum has stopped, and we stand on the carpet. Even in uncertainty, even in the not knowing, we can intuit what the boon might be when we finish this piece of guts work. With warrior's presence and energy, with sovereign honoring and vision, with magician's alchemy, with lover's passion. There will be denial and refusal of the call. There will be rage and grief, bargaining and depression. There will be loss and new gifts and joy and gratitude. Scott Fried in New York City, one of the wild men who has carried me and taught me, shared when I reached out to him last week. He said, I've been here before. A lot of us have been here before. Scotty watched as his loved ones died in the AIDS epidemic, and he felt the impact of a society that had largely turned its back. And he shared that when he reached the end of that time, he was left with love, forgiveness, and acceptance. And so starting this time, he's decided that that's where he will begin, with love, forgiveness, and acceptance. I think we have just what we need if we choose it. And if what I have seen happen in just the last 4 weeks are an indication, I believe that our adventurer's spirit is ignited and that we are unwilling to turn away. Across our regions, our circles have pivoted almost overnight, charting new territory in what's possible through rectangles on a screen. Generosity and creativity is bringing new programs online with record speed. And we are changing the number of gates, doorways, the size of the doors, the languages on the signs to enter. We are opening. Things we've said could never be done, I'm already seeing us doing. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge men and women with foresight who began acting a decade ago to lay the foundation for what we are doing now. New warriors who have been absent for years, in some ways left out because of our reliance on physical proximity, are flooding into virtual rooms. Groups of men bonded by backgrounds or interests are finding each other and stepping into power and creativity together in ways that I've never seen. I think the gold we are discovering and the shadows we are integrating are powerful medicines. We are formulating a salve that will help to heal not only the individual, the I, but also this collective we. With our broader perspective to make this institution and our institutions work for more people, and our culture be a place of healing rather than psychic mutilation. Robert Moore asked us back in '95, before he even became a new warrior, if this would be the brotherhood. Would history look back and take note of this small group of men who woke up at the end of the 20th century and worked together for our collective good? With this broader perspective, I think that we are. I think that this is the relevant evolution we've been anticipating. And we could turn back, but that's not why we came. So collectively, let's knock on that door and enter.